As a person with a very deep voice, I'm hired all the time for advertising campaigns. But a deep voice doesn't sell B2B, and advertising on the wrong platform doesn't sell B2B either. That's why if you're a B2B marketer, you should use LinkedIn ads. LinkedIn has the targeting capabilities to help you reach the world's largest professional audience. That's right, over 70 million decision makers all in one place. All the big wigs, then medium wigs, also small wigs who are on the path to becoming big wigs. Okay, that's enough about wigs. LinkedIn ads allows you to focus on getting your B2B message to the right people. So, does that mean you should use ads on LinkedIn instead of hiring me, the man with the deepest voice in the world? Yes. Yes, it does. Get started today and see why LinkedIn is the place to be to be. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AEye Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AEye Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AEye Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to AEye Scouted on Anfield Index Pro. I'm Dave Hendrick, joined as always by Mr. Karl Matchett. How are you, sir?
I'm all right. What we're talking about, less all right, if we're being honest, after last night.
Yeah, so we are recording on Friday morning after Thursday night's debacle in Toulouse. We are here to discuss Liverpool versus Brentford, a game in which Liverpool will look to bounce back after two really, really poor results. Like, let's be fair, Karl. When we were looking at the schedule, those were two games that Liverpool really should have won and won comfortably, considering Luton are dreadful and we walloped Toulouse 5-1 only a matter of weeks ago. This should have been a fairly straightforward week for Liverpool, and instead they've made it far more difficult than it needed to be. It becomes even more complicated when we factor in Alexis McAllister booked against Luton, therefore out this weekend. Curtis Jones picking up a hamstring injury before Luton, out this weekend. Thiago Alcantara, Andy Robertson and Stefan Bajcetic already out to begin with. And then Ryan Gravenberch picking up a little niggle of the knee, according to Jurgen, and potentially out, I would say likely out this weekend. So, on top of the bad week, now we play Brentford, who are significantly better than either of the last two teams, and we don't really have a midfield to speak of.
Yeah, look, the last two games were games we should have won with our eyes closed. I think when we were looking at the run that we had through to the international break, those were probably maybe Toulouse at home more than Toulouse away, obviously, but still, both of those games were matches that we didn't even really have any other consideration of other than, well, we should win those two. It was a very winnable run all the way through. And if we did slip up somewhere along the way, honestly, I wouldn't have expected it to be those two matches. I know Luton, with the whole promoted big game for them thing, blah, blah, blah. We still should have beat them. Still shouldn't have put in the performances that we did. Brentford would probably be one of the ones you would look at and say, well, that is a marginally more difficult game for us compared to, home to Nottingham Forest, for example. Brentford, a better side, generally speaking. Away in the cup, a rotated team might slip up, that kind of thing. So it kind of puts a little bit more pressure on this game to get a result in Premier League terms, obviously, having drawn last week. You don't want to go into an international break on the back of 3 non-victories in a row before facing Man City. You don't want to really be going into the international break preparing to face Man City, having lost a load of players to injury and so on. And with regards to Brentford specifically, they didn't really have a great start to the season, but they've now won 3 in a row. They've found themselves not just results form, but I think the midfield has been shaped much, much better recently for them. And obviously they've hit the goal trail as well. 8 goals in the last 3 matches.
Yeah, so let's talk about their season so far. So they begin with the 2-2 draw against Tottenham. Then they go to Fulham and beat them 3-0. Fulham were a bit of a shambles to begin the season as well, with the Palhinha stuff and the Mitrovic stuff, and they didn't really get their acting gear for a couple of weeks. Then they drew 1-1 at home to Crystal Palace, a game that they were probably quite disappointed not to pick up the 3 points. And then they drew 2-2 at home to Bournemouth, and were quite fortunate to get the draw in that one. And then things got tougher for them. They lost 1-0 up at Newcastle. Then they lost 3-1 at home to Everton, a game in which they were comprehensively outplayed. They had more of the ball, but Everton's approach really hurt them, and they couldn't figure out how to stop it, which is ironic because it's a similar approach to what they've taken in the past against us. Then they drew 1-1 away to Nottingham Forest, which was a disappointment for them because Forest went down to 10 men. And then they went 1-0 up. And then Forest, with their 10 men, managed to come back into the game. And then they went to Old Trafford and they scored after 26 minutes. And they were still 1-0 up after 92 minutes. And yet somehow they lost the game. But then they came home for Burnley and won 3-0. They went to Chelsea and won 2-0. And truthfully, they missed 2 or 3 big chances in that game as well. And then they beat West Ham 3-2 in their last outing, went 1 up, fell behind 2-1, and you thought, this is another one of those games where they've gone ahead and they're going to throw it away. But in the second half, they turned things around. They managed to win the game. Nathan Collins with his first goal for the club. It's been a bit of a mixed bag. 4 wins, 4 draws, 3 defeats, 19 goals scored, 14 conceded. They sit 9th. Overall, they're probably very, very happy with where they are. But I think certain parts of the journey to get here this season will have upset Thomas Frank.
I think that's fair. I think he might have expected some struggles, but not necessarily in the way that they've come. I mean, obviously going into the season without Ivan Toney and without, let's say, a replacement for Ivan Toney, because he didn't go as such, maybe he would have expected, maybe we'll struggle to find not just the goals, but really the build-up play in the same way. But, people like Johan Wissa really had a good start to the season, so it mitigated it, even if they were playing a slightly different way, let's say. But that period in the middle where you mentioned there was sort of 4 defeats in 5 games, there were defensive errors there. There were a few moments where goalkeeper Mark Flecken looked, I wouldn't say disastrous, but certainly uncertain at times. A few too many changes in defence of late. And even like right now, they certainly were struggling with numbers when they played West Ham. Ended up with Vitaly Janelt playing left back and Christopher Ajer at right back. So it was a back 4, but with 3 centre-backs and a midfielder. So kind of really good for them in terms of that they did still manage to win that game, but you can see why slightly smaller squad, a few injuries suddenly makes a big difference for them. And we've mentioned also a couple of times already when we've spoken about them earlier this season, a couple of signings which haven't really worked for them at all yet, with fairly big numbers for Brentford, certainly, which they'll be hoping for a much better return on across the course of this season, certainly. But the players who they've got, let's say, in and around numbers 1 to 12, 13, 14 have probably overperformed to this part of the season to an extent, individually, even if the results haven't always been perfect. But look, come the end of the season, obviously Brentford are not the only team who will have ups and downs and injury issues and all the rest of it. If Brentford finished 9th, I reckon they'd probably be pretty happy with that when you consider that what used to be a top 4 is now effectively a top 7 by money, and then Brighton punching as high as they possibly can is 8. If Brentford finished 9th and they're the best of everybody else, I think that's exceptional.
Yeah, I would agree. I would class that as exceptional as well. When you look at the money involved and you factor in, you've got the big 6 plus Newcastle's money, plus Aston Villa, who you didn't factor in as well. who are, I mean, a huge club, really ambitious owners, a good manager, a very good group of players. You add them to that mix and Brighton, that's 9. So for Brentford to be where they are, they're actually currently above one of that 9. And that's obviously Chelsea at the moment. It could be even better for them if a certain team in Manchester continue to shit the bed on such a regular basis. They might well end up finishing a little bit higher. They're only, as things stand, 4 points behind Newcastle in 6th. So they will be very happy with where they are and how things are going. You mentioned the Ivan Toney thing. So in the summer, having finished 9th last season, ahead of Chelsea, it should be pointed out, they signed Mark Flecken very early, knowing that David Raya was going to be leaving them. They made the Kevin Shade deal permanent. That was an obligation. And they signed Nathan Collins from Wolves. They also brought in Neil Maupay on loan on deadline day, and they re-signed Saman Ghoddos, who initially they'd released, and they brought him back in. They lose out on Sergi Canos, he goes. Mads Bidstrup, he goes. Mads Beck Sorensen goes. And obviously David Raya goes on loan to Arsenal late in the window.
Where did Sergi Canos go, by the way?
Sergi Canos went to Valencia.
Okay, fine.
And has played 4 or 5 times. So he's at least involved. It's weird to me that they didn't go and find an Ivan Toney replacement, Karl. It's weird to me that they didn't look at the situation and think, right, when he comes back, he's got 18 months on his deal. So realistically, we probably are going to have to sell him as soon as he's back and eligible to play again. Now, maybe they'll go in January and buy someone, but, you know, Victor Gyökeres, who went from Coventry to Sporting, struck me every time I watched him as the ideal Ivan Toney replacement. Victor Boniface, who went to Bayer Leverkusen, struck me as someone that would have made a lot of sense. And maybe he wasn't an option because he came from St. Gilio, who are owned by Tony Bloom, and Tony Bloom and Matthew Benning don't get on, so maybe that wasn't an option. But Gyökeres definitely was an option. And he moved for around £18 million, which is absolutely doable for a club like Brentford. And he didn't move until like the middle of July. So there was an opportunity early in the summer, like early in June, to go and get him, because obviously you can buy from English clubs in June. I didn't understand why they didn't go for someone like him. He would have been perfect, in my view. Bring him in. He's a similar age to what Tony was when you signed him. You get 2 years out of him, and then you're looking to sell him on a significant profit. Based on how he's performed thus far for Sporting, he might not be there more than 1 year, and I think they're going to make a huge amount of money on him. I don't really understand why they didn't. And now I know that they've scored some goals, especially in recent weeks, but you look at certain other games, Crystal Palace couldn't find that second goal. Newcastle couldn't find an equaliser. Nothing stuck for them against Everton. Everything was just bouncing back, and Everton were launching along and taking advantage of certain weaknesses in that Brentford defence. The same thing up at Forest against 10 men, couldn't find the second goal. Couldn't find the second goal to get themselves into an even stronger position at Old Trafford, despite the fact that they had quite a bit of dominance in that game. I'm just really surprised they didn't address it, because they knew Tony was going to miss half the season. He was vital to how they played, and they're going to have to replace him anyway because he is going to leave. So I'm a little bit surprised. I think they just fell short in their summer transfer window, and have made it a little bit tougher on themselves than they needed to.
So a couple of the players who they were linked in summer, Habib Diallo Strasbourg at the time, and Amanda Broja, who obviously at Chelsea but had a knee injury and was recovering still at the time. So the profile is about right for what you were saying. The only thing I can really think, obviously, the one possibility is they couldn't spend that money until they got the Tony money. So if that's the case, then so be it. They would have needed to sell him in the summer, and obviously that wasn't changing. But the only other thing I could think of is that they've been pretty insistent that they don't want him to go. And I know there's a contract, limitation basically on them doing so. But if they genuinely think that they can keep him or he might stay, bringing in a new signing in the summer might have said to him, well, yeah, we keep saying we want you to stay, but we know really you're going to go. That's the only thing that I can really think, that it was a play on thinking, well, if we didn't sign him and he got injured for 3 months, it would be the same. That kind of thing.
Fair, but I do think there needs to be a recognition of where you sit in the food chain. And Brentford, to this point, have always had a strong recognition of where they sit, where they fit. And, we saw it when they sold Ollie Watkins. We saw it when they sold Ezri Konsa, Chris Meffam, Ben Rama. Like, all of these players were there and were sold because their whole model is, well, it's the Brighton model, isn't it? Like, it's the exact same thing. It's scout well, buy low, develop well, sell high. That's the model. And then reinvest it and go again. And they've for some reason, maybe they thought they could keep Ivan Toney, but every single bit of reporting around the situation since the summer has been that Ivan Toney has told him he wants to leave.
Yeah.
That Ivan Toney feels he's ready for a step up. And there's no question Ivan Toney is ready for a step up. And given his age, he's 28 soon enough, isn't he? He'll be 28 in March. So he'll only be back and then he turns 28 2 months later. It makes sense to move him on in January at the highest possible price, because unless he is going to sign a new contract, which this would have been the ideal time to get a contract done while he's not able to play, and you've got months and months with nothing else to distract him other than a contract, there's been near a hint of any kind of extension or him having any interest.
One thing I would say about the model of Brighton, where you've mentioned it, I don't really think that Brentford have done the selling anywhere near as much as that.
They haven't, but they also haven't bought to the extent of Brighton. Like, Brighton have a ton of young players.
Yeah.
Whereas with Brentford, they've kind of bought a team.
Yeah, I don't remember Brentford selling too many other than that Watkins and Ben Rama team. They sold those. I think they went in the same window, didn't they?
They did, but I do think part of that is Thomas Frank, because he's quite pragmatic in his approach. I think he's built quite a pragmatic team that doesn't really have too many stars. I mean, if you look at the team they've been playing in recent years, Mbuemo, star potential maybe, Toney, like the midfield is very workmanlike. It's not a midfield of young standout players. Rico Henry, I think, possibly would have been lined up for a move next summer, but he's now torn his ACL, so that's probably off the cards. And the centre-backs is the same thing. It's been older, more experienced centre-backs. But if you look at the players they've brought in, I do think that's been the plan. Like, they didn't buy Kevin Shade so he spends his entire career there, in my view. I'd say the same of the signings they made last summer. Aaron Hickey, Keane Lewis-Potter, Mikkel Damsgaard, they all seem to me like players that you bring in, you develop, and in 2 years, you move them on.
Yeah, I think, the Damsgaard one and Lewis-Potter that we've spoken about a few times, haven't we? They are ones that they need to work. They needed them to work for team purposes, but also for investment in team purposes. I think it's going to be a problematic thing if at least one of them, I think, doesn't doesn't really kick on and develop the way they wanted them to.
Yeah, for certain. Yeah, I mean, the last big money sales were certainly Watkins and Benrahma, and then before that, Konza. So their model is, it is slightly different to Brighton's without question. But then if you think about Brighton, when they first came into the division, because they're a couple of years ahead of where Brentford are, they were very much the same. Like, they didn't have a bunch of big money sales in those first couple of years as they sought to establish themselves in the division. And Brentford might still be in the midst of that. They might still be kind of just focused on, let's stay in the division, let's finish as high as we possibly can, but let's be pragmatic about this, and let's not jump too quickly onto the full-blown sell to buy kind of thing, or buy to sell to buy, whatever way you want to look at it.
If you're maybe not a Champions League team, but maybe one of that group that you mentioned before, Tottenham, I suppose, at the minute, plus maybe Aston Villa because they have money, that sort of thing. If you're looking outside of Ivan Toney, are there many there that you would take? I mean, I think Hickey is obviously a bit of a standout in terms of profile, positions, versatility, all that kind of thing. But beyond that?
A non-injured Rico Henry, I think, is better than the majority of left-backs in the league. Hickey's definitely one. If Norgard was like 2 years younger, he'd absolutely be one. But he's not. So, yeah.
I think they'd probably get decent money for Brian Mbuemo if he wanted to go.
Mbuemo for certain, yeah. Mbuemo for certain. I think Matthias Jensen could bring in some decent money. I think he's a very tidy player, and he's quite consistent. Sade is the one they're kind of hoping, I'd say, to hit big on. Ayer, I mean, he's another one they definitely bought with this in mind, but he's had so many injuries that it's been...
Yeah, that's the problem. But even, to be honest, the same thing for Josh Da Silva. I think he's a really, really good player.
Same, yeah.
But he's had so many injuries.
He's so talented.
Yeah, he's...
And when he gets a run of games, like, do you remember, was it last season or the season before, he came back from months and months out, and then he got himself sent off.
Yeah. And
it was so unfortunate. I think he walked off in tears on the day because he'd just come back after this big, long spell out. He's such a talented player. But, I mean, he's sitting out with a hamstring injury, so, he's only just back to doing solo outdoor training in the last couple of weeks.
So latest number 9s that they've been linked with that I can find. I don't know. I haven't watched one of them, so you have to see if you know him. That's Marcos Leonardo for Santos. He's a centre forward over in Brazil. I've never watched him play. He's only 20 years old, but apparently has played over 150 games for them already. So
I've watched him about 3 times because he was linked with us about 2 years ago. He looked talented, but it was 2 years ago that I watched him, so I've no idea how he's developed.
Yeah.
He's got a good goal-scoring record, though.
Yeah, 50 or so and 150 or just a bit over for both of them. Evangelos Pavlidis plays for AZ.
I like him.
Yeah.
I've seen a decent amount of him in the Europa League and the Conference League and whatever over the last couple of years. He does strike me as a Brentford type of number 9 who could replace Tony. We don't have a great track record of Greek players coming into the league and doing well, though.
Were you not a big fan of Big Soto?
No. No, definitely was not.
He did a job.
Dating back to, what was the fellow's name?
Who?
Winger signs for
who?
Blackburn.
Trianos Delas?
Oh, Georgios Donis.
Oh, Georgie Donis.
Do you remember him? He's the fella that came out in the paper and said, they asked him what drew him to England, and he said the quiet part out loud and went, well, obviously the great financial packages that they're offering over here. Brilliant.
Trianos Delas at Sheffield United was great international, not great domestic. One of those classics.
And then there was Samaras.
Georgie Samaras, yeah.
Yeah. He had
Good at
some
Celtic. Good at Celtic.
Very good at Celtic. Very, very good at Celtic. Different league. That the golf quality
in more ways than one. Yeah.
Yeah.
The last name I think is the best fit. So it's Wolfsburg's Jonas Vind.
Yes. Yeah, he is one that does make sense. And look, they obviously have very strong Danish connections as a club, and there's a lot of Danes in the squad, and obviously the manager is a Dane as well. So it does make a lot of sense in the non-footballing ways, and it makes a lot of sense in a footballing way because he's that sort of 9.5, similar to Tony, that kind of all-round, like the Harry Kane model. Yeah. By the way, did you see some of the passes that Harry Kane played against Galatasaray? The one for Sané was just disgustingly good.
I didn't watch that game. Yeah.
Oh, he's gone up a level since moving to Bayern again.
Oh, there's a lot better movement around him now, and he has, considerably more of the ball than Spurs have over the last couple of years pre-Ange.
That's very, very true. It's very, very true. Jonas Wind would make a lot of sense for them. And the one question mark on him prior to this season was, can he score enough goals to elevate himself? This season, he started in great form. He's got 9 and 12 in all competitions, 8 and 10 in the league. So he's already at his best numbers for Wolfsburg. And we're only a little bit into the season. I like the fit, both culturally and football-wise. So that's definitely one I think to monitor for January.
As a person with a very deep voice, I'm hired all the time for advertising campaigns. But a deep voice doesn't sell B2B. And advertising on the wrong platform doesn't sell B2B either. That's why if you're a B2B marketer, you should use LinkedIn ads. LinkedIn has the targeting capabilities to help you reach the world's largest professional audience. That's right, over 70 million decision makers all in one place. All the big wigs, then medium wigs, also small wigs who are on the path to becoming big wigs. Okay, that's enough about wigs. LinkedIn ads allows you to focus on getting your B2B message to the right people. So, does that mean you should use ads on LinkedIn instead of hiring me, the man with the deepest voice in the world? Yes. Yes, it does. Get started today and see why LinkedIn is the place to be to be. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah, Randy.
Since we founded Bombas, we've always said our socks, underwear, and T-shirts are super soft. Any new ideas?
Maybe sublimely soft.
Or disgustingly cozy.
Wait, what?
I got it. Bombas. Absurdly comfortable essentials for yourself and everyone on your list.
And for those facing homelessness.
Because one purchased equals one donated.
Wow, did we just write an ad?
Yes.
Bombas. Big comfort for everyone. Go to bombas.com/ACAST and use code ACAST for 20% off your first purchase.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac, and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes, and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
Rin's only second season that he scored more than 7 league goals in his career, and obviously the first of those was when he was still playing in Denmark. But the one thing you might say is, from the Wolfsburg perspective, massively reliant on him for goals this season. He has 8 of their 15, so over half of their goals. So again, price tag wise, things happen, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. This weekend, they have a lot of injuries, Karl. They're in one of the worst situations in the league in terms of absentees. So, no Rico Henry, out for the season. No Aaron Hickey. He's not back until he's not expected back until January. That's the knock on him. He is a little bit fragile. He does get hurt every season for a bit of an extended spell. Last season, it was an ankle. One of the seasons at Bologna, it was a shoulder. This time, it's a thigh. Ivan Toney out till January. Kevin Schade out till January. Damsgaard, another sick note. He's out till the end of the month. De Silva, we talked about. He's out till the end of the month. Flecken has a dead leg, but is expected to be okay. Lewis Potter, they're hoping he'll be back in a week or two, but he probably misses out this weekend. And then Shandon Baptiste is working his way back to fitness. He played for the B team on Tuesday. But in the words of Thomas Frank, he's still just undercooked in terms of being available for selection this weekend. So you can rule him out as well. So that's 9 players, including, obviously, the Ivan Toney situation. So it does make it tough for Thomas Frank to put out a team that's strong in all areas. Do you expect him to go with the back 4 this weekend or the back 3? Because they mix and match between the two, and they seem very comfortable in both shapes.
They do. The only thing I would say is, without De Silva and Hickey, I don't immediately see someone who is particularly wing-back capable, especially for that left-hand side. Well, I don't see someone who's capable on either side, but Mads Roerslev does play right wing-back for them. But on the left, do you want Janelt to be wing-back? I mean, at full-back, fine. He can obviously do the job there, and his passing range is decent. Stamina-wise isn't an issue, but I think for pace and genuine all-round athleticism of getting up and down so much as a wing-back, I'm not sure I'd be looking at Janelt to do it. So unless you're asking someone like Jan Wisse to play there, which I don't think would be a great idea, and obviously then reduces their attacking options, I'm not sure I really see another left-sided wing-back option for them.
That's a very fair shout. I think because of the injuries and the absentees, you're right. They probably are going to be forced to play a back 4. So Mark Flecken will be in goal. We know that much. You would imagine Ethan Pinnock starts, Nathan Collins starts. Ben Mee at left back, maybe, if they play a 4. And Roerslev a right back. Or maybe Ayer plays right back and they go with the 4 centre-back look.
Yeah, Ayer played right back against West Ham, so I'd expect him to just stay there, to be perfectly honest. I thought he was pretty decent, and Janelt, like I said, was quite good as well. They made changes very late on, and Ben Mee came on like really, really late on for Janelt. So they could put him there, but I imagine it'd just be Janelt again. I wouldn't be surprised just to see that same back 4, to be fair.
So in midfield then, we'll get Nordgaard, we'll get Jensen. They've got some options for that third role. Who do you expect to start? Do you think they'll go with a 3? Or will they go with a 4 and pack the midfield and just play Mbuemo and Wissa up front?
I don't honestly remember last time I saw them playing like a proper 4 in midfield. I know they switch a lot, but it seems to be 4-3-3 or a 3 wing backs 2, basically. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them keep it the same, just because then you can drop the wide forwards back, obviously, to make a 5 if you need to. They're very, very quick. They're very ingrained in Brentford's tactics. The pair of them have been pretty much every single week players. So I think it would be the 4-3-3 base. And then you're really just looking at that midfield to set as much of a platform as possible, and then Jensen get forward as and when. So Onyeka started against West Ham.
He did.
Sorry?
He's another one that they bought. And he hasn't really kicked on the way they'd have hoped.
Yeah, he's been a very squad player for them, hasn't he? So I think he played okay from a team impact perspective. Technically, not tremendous against West Ham. Like there was quite a few occasions of either overrunning the ball or, fairly basic passes went astray, that kind of thing. But he is, like I say, one of the players who doesn't really get a sustained run in the team a lot of the time. He's often used as a substitute to bolster them up a little bit if they're leading or try to bring a bit more physicality, that kind of thing. But in terms of progressing the ball for them, like Norgard and Jensen, obviously in the team all the time, are very, very good players, but neither of them blessed with, let's say, ball carrying at pace ability. Onyeka did do that, especially first half against West Ham. And I thought Brentford first half were really, really good. And probably before they went 2-1 down, could and should have been maybe 2-0, 3-1 up, something like that. Missed a couple of really decent chances, created a lot of problems, especially for Mavropanos at the back. And Onyeka was quite a decent part of that, just by his presence and just by being able to bully once or twice Emerson down that channel. So I wouldn't be surprised if he starts again, partly because of his performance, but also partly, obviously, like you say, they've just not got loads of options. You look at who came off the bench that time, and they're not going to have anybody new back. Yarmolyuk, me, Godos, Roslev, and Strakosha is obviously the half-time goalkeeper switch. So I don't see anyone there who's going to take his place, because he wasn't terrible by any stretch of the imagination. He had a fairly good game in terms of his normal starts for them. So I've not seen loads of Yarmolyuk, so maybe he's the one who might, but like I say, he's not exactly been like a regular player, has he? He's come on and sub a handful of times.
No.
That's it. So
no, that's true, and like he doesn't seem to have the manager's full faith as yet. Like sub appearances is one thing, but he's a young. That's it. He's 19, so like he's not a player that's been signed for the short term. He's a long term development piece. The midfield of Norgard, Jensen, and Onyeka does have some decent balance though, because you get a strong defensive presence. They're all good defensively, but Norgard is very, very good defensively, and Onyeka is a powerful ball winner. And then you've got Jensen and Norgard, who are good progressive passers. And obviously Jensen has great delivery from set pieces as well. So you do get a little bit of everything with that trio. If Onyeka could be consistent, it's probably the starting three, with Norgard, with Janot kind of rotating in because he can play all three positions. And Thomas Frank would probably like to have that kind of 4 starters for 3 positions type of thing. But thus far in his Brentford career, Onyeka hasn't shown consistency. This is an opportunity for him now to do so. And that midfield, it does make me a little bit nervous about our midfield. So just to finish their team, Wissa and Mbuemo either side of Neil Mopey, who scored his first goal in 14 months, and you'd hope doesn't find what would be, called form and get another one quite so quickly. That midfield does worry me a little bit against our midfield. So if we look at what Liverpool's situation is, then no Thiago, no Robbo, no Alexis, no Curtis. Gravenberch is a doubt, and no Besetic. So we're down to very much bare bones. If Gravenberch can't play, are we just looking at Dominic, Endo, and Harvey Elliott as a midfield three? Because that doesn't really fill me with confidence.
You sound thrilled by the prospect.
I'm not thrilled by either Gravenberch or Harvey as the third midfielder with Endo and Dominic. Dominic is obviously great, but Endo concerns me, and so do the other two.
So, honestly, if I'm Jurgen, I'm going back to 4-4-2 for this game and putting Diaz one side if he's obviously still happy to play, and then whoever you want the other side. But I don't expect that would be the case. So I wouldn't be surprised, given that he started and didn't finish the game, if we saw Gakpo back in midfield for this one, just for size, presence, and has played in midfield earlier this season. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't think he brings physicality despite his size, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, just because Endo, fairly short, Elliott, too short, too small, despite much more fight about his game than some of the others. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Cody, Szoboszlai, and Endo.
The word yuck is just screaming in my head, but I don't disagree. He's been so poor this season. But, I mean, there's no other option, really. Like, Harvey, for as much effort as he puts in...
Yeah.
I don't see Harvey play right wing, Diaz left wing, and Dominic and Endo as a two.
Yeah.
Yeah, and stop the Trent inversion nonsense.
That's what I would prefer for this game specifically, because of the lack of options we have in the middle, and possibly Harvey, but possibly Jota right wing, because I think, as I mentioned on Brawl last night, Jota much better in terms of ball carrying, first touch, that kind of thing in the last few appearances. So I would probably be looking at Jota to start one side on the right, Diaz on the left. They'd have to narrow, obviously, because otherwise we're going to be 3v2 outnumbered in the middle. But Endo and Szoboszlai just there as a pair, I don't think would be the worst. And then, obviously, you've still got Darwin and Mo up top.
Yeah, that could work. That could definitely work. I'd like to see Jurgen just be a little bit unpredictable with his lineup, because we've become a little bit predictable, I think.
Yeah, I do think that there's a difference between... Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, I think the inversion makes us, the inverted fullback thing, I think it makes us predictable.
Yeah, I think that there's a difference between having a settled side and not being pragmatic enough to change the approach when you don't have the players to do that settled side, to be perfectly honest.
So, do you think Ali will start? I assume Ibu and Virgil start. Trent will be right back. The only other question then, because let's be honest, Jurgen's not going to change. He's going to play 4-3-3. So it's just a matter of who that third midfielder is. It'll be Dominic, it'll be Endo. It could be Cody, it could be Harvey, it could be Gravenberch if he's fit. And then it'll be Mo, Darwin, and either Jota or Diaz. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Jota. So I suppose the only question left then is who plays left back. Costas did not have a good audition for the role last night. Could Joe Gomez play left back again, as he did at Luton and as he did yesterday in the second half? Is that, do you think, the move, or could he go one of the youngsters? Could he give Luke Chambers the start?
I would be going with Joe Gomez. I think he's played fairly well. Yeah, I think he's played fairly well. Obviously, it's not his natural or best role or whatever, but I think he's done the job. I think he's played well enough over the last few matches where Liverpool as a whole perhaps haven't. And not only that, but obviously if we're talking about Brentford and their attack, then the cutting in from the sides is obviously going to favour a right footer as well, from Brentford's right coming in on Mbuemo's left. So that's probably what I would stick with.
Yeah, and I think there is some logic to playing a right-footed fullback who's going to be more comfortable with somebody coming infield off that flank. So Mbuemo, we know he's always going to cut inside onto his left foot. His right foot is literally just for standing on. And if you remember last season, we saw Sean Dyche against Arsenal play McNeil and Iwobi almost as wing-backs on their wrong sides, but it was to deal with the threat of the Arsenal wingers cutting in field onto their stronger feet. And it worked really, really well. And I do think having Joe there, whose dominant side is his right side, to deal with Mbuemo cutting in field onto his left foot might be the best way to try and nullify. Plus, Brian Mbuemo is absolutely rapid. We saw him outsprint Virgil last season, which I don't remember anyone else doing in Virgil's entire time at Liverpool. Now, Virgil was injured and he went off at half-time in that game, but he might have gotten injured trying to keep up with Mbuemo. He moves. He doesn't look like he should be, but he's one of the quickest players in the league. Joe is probably our fastest player. He used to be our fastest player over long distance. I assume he's still up there. So that makes a lot more sense than Costas, who isn't the quickest.
And Costas, when he is going quickly, is pretty much straight lines, I find. I don't think he's the most agile at turning when people chop inside or try to take him on or that. I think Gomez is probably a bit better there. And obviously, in terms of aerials, defending far post, that kind of thing, again, you're probably looking at Gomez being the better option as a covering defender. We're not going to get the overlapping runs constantly like you do with Costas, but his delivery hasn't been great in the last few games anyway. So that's not the be all and end all by any stretch of the imagination. And Mbuemo is probably their best player, especially right at this moment in time. So again, I would probably favour
Yes,
Gomez
with Tony out, it's him.
Yeah.
With Tony out, it's him. And I think if we can stop him, we go a long way towards stopping them. And unfortunately for us, just at the moment, given the last two results and the injury issues and the absentees we have, we do have to concern ourselves with stopping them. It's not just a case of turn up, play as well as you can and you'll win. You also have to, with a team like Brentford right now, you do have to find that balance of we do our part, but we also need to stop them doing their part if we want to win the game. One of the reasons we haven't won either the last two games is because we haven't stopped the opposition. Our team should pick itself. So for the most part, the rest of it, the left side is the question. Left back, left side of midfield. Although maybe he plays Dominic left side of midfield if it's Harvey who starts. And then the left wing, I think it's just a question because Diaz's head might not fully be right just yet after what he's been through. Jota came on and scored a good goal last night, so maybe, and he came on late, so he didn't get a huge amount of minutes. So maybe he starts on the left wing. But other than those three positions, I think everywhere else is fairly nailed on. Prediction then, Karl?
I'm going to go with a win because we're at home. I have a feeling we're not going to enjoy this game very much at all. But I am going to go for a win. I'm a little bit hoping that we get some good Darwin or great Darwin. I mean, on Darwin, by the way, I was having a little look at him before. He's still not even played as many minutes in the league this season as Joel Matip. Joel Matip's not been our starting centre-back for a bit of a while now. It's starting to irritate me a little bit. I want some good Darwin this weekend, and if we do get some good Darwin, I do think that they'll struggle to contain our attack as a whole. And I'm going to, on that basis, go for a 3-2.
Ooh, fun. Loads of goals, but I agree with you. No, neither do I. And I agree with you. I think they'll make it very, very hard for us. They make it hard for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, they're a good team. They're really well managed. They're really well set up. I love watching Brentford because everyone is completely bought in on what Thomas Frank is asking of them. And it's rare enough that you see that where every single player is completely locked in on the manager's instructions. I'll go 2-1, a little less exciting than your 5-goal bonanza. I'll go with a 3-goal squeaker where we probably have to batten down the hatches for the last 10 to 15. I think we might go like 2-1, 2-0 up. They get one back, and then it's kind of all hands to the pump for a little while as they play balls into the channels and run really fast after them and then pile midfielders into the box and try and win set pieces and annoy the life out of us. I think this is a game where we're going to need Virgil to be like as good as he's been recently. I think we need... Yeah, exactly. I think we need Ibu to have, because Ibu did not have a good day against them last year. Wissa caused him a lot of problems. we're going to need him to have a really strong day as well. So there we go. That is us for today. Do you have anything to plug before we go, Mr. Matchett?
I do have a piece out today, mentioned on Raw last night, about Girona in Spain. They are top of La Liga heading into this weekend and can stay there basically across the international break. So I've spoken to Daley Blind, who is playing there these days, and just got a bit of detail about Michel, the manager, and how the team have sort of been put together this year, and how they've managed to get themselves better than everybody else in Spain. Won more games, taken more points, scored more goals. They are the team in Spain to watch this year.
It is. It's mad. And it's funny because you look around the big leagues in Europe and there's two sort of, wow, they're top of the league kind of moments. One is Girona and the other is Nice. But they've done it in completely different ways. Girona are great to watch, free-flowing, scoring a ton of goals. Nice are the best defensive team in Europe right now. But it's really cool to see two different teams top of their respective top 5 leagues. And hopefully both of them do get positive results this weekend and can get into that. Because if you can get into the third international break of the season, top of the league, that's a good achievement for clubs like these two. Like Nice last season finished 9th, and Girona last season finished 10th. So this is enormous progress from both of them. No one, I don't think, expects this to continue for the whole season, but they can enjoy it through the international break if they can get the positive results this weekend. And
people
they are then the team to beat coming out of the break.
Yeah, people didn't expect Montpellier to stay top all season. They didn't expect Leicester to stay top all season. So
yeah,
you never know.
True. Very, very true. It's just with France, because PSG have like more money than all the rest of the clubs put together. And in La Liga, you've got those two monstrous clubs. It is. I know, and look, we have it in the Premier League. We have United, City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea. The Leicester thing remains something that someone needs to do some sort of scientific investigation on. But yeah, it is a bit crazy. It's great to see. It is genuinely great to see. So this weekend, Girona travel to Rayo Vallecano. And funnily enough that you mentioned Montpellier, because I believe that is who Nice play this weekend. It is. Nice are away to Montpellier tonight, actually, at 8 p.m. So if you've got nothing better to be doing, give that game a watch and find out why Jean-Claire Todibo is currently one of the best centre-backs anywhere in the world. He is absolutely playing out of his skin at the moment. It is great to see him finally realise all that potential that he's had for years since he was at Toulouse. He's had a weird career with the Barca nonsense and the Schalke nonsense, and he's finally settled somewhere. And he's gone up so many levels over the last 2 years, and now he is, like, if we signed him in next summer, I would genuinely be thrilled. I've always liked him. I've always thought he'd be a good squad player, but he's genuinely someone I look at now and think, post Virgil, he might be someone to consider. Age-wise, he might not be the right profile to come then, but if we brought him in now as like a third starter where you rotate him with Ibu and he'd play some games instead of Virgil, I would genuinely be thrilled. He's been that good.
There you go. We're bringing back our what to watch around Europe this season, aren't we?
Oh, yeah. Is there any game out there that stands out to you?
I mean, there's 2 games that stand out this weekend. It's the Rome derby, isn't it, in Serie A? Lazio v Roma on Sunday. And who was the other derby? Can't remember now. There was another one. Sevilla Betis, maybe? Can't remember. There was 2 really big derbies this week, and the Rome derby's one. I think maybe Sevilla Betis is the other one this weekend.
Yes, Sevilla Betis is a 5:30 kickoff on Sunday.
So you have to choose one or the other. There you go.
Yeah, the other one's a 5 p.m. kickoff on Sunday, Lazio versus Roma. Both should be, I think, pretty good games. Notable games in the Bundesliga this weekend: Stuttgart versus Dortmund at 2:30 tomorrow. Stuttgart have made a really good start to the season. They currently sit third. Dortmund are fourth. Both lost last time out. And is there anything else to note? In Portugal, Sunday night. This is the third big derby of the weekend, but Karl's too snobbish to consider Portuguese football. 8:30 kickoff, Benfica versus Sporting. Benfica are a weird team. They're good domestically, atrocious in the Champions League. Sporting, top of the league, unbeaten, one of the few unbeaten teams left around Europe, so that one should be good as well. So there you go. You have Sundays taken care of. You can watch us, and then you can watch some of this stuff. Don't bother watching whatever the other game is on Sunday in the Premier League, because it'll just upset you. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
As a person with a very deep voice, I'm hired all the time for advertising campaigns. But a deep voice doesn't sell B2B, and advertising on the wrong platform doesn't sell B2B either. That's why if you're a B2B marketer, you should use LinkedIn ads. LinkedIn has the targeting capabilities to help you reach the world's largest professional audience. That's right, over 70 million decision makers all in one place. All the big wigs, then medium wigs, also small wigs who are on the path to becoming big wigs. Okay, that's enough about wigs. LinkedIn ads allows you to focus on getting your B2B message to the right people. So, does that mean you should use ads on LinkedIn instead of hiring me, the man with the deepest voice in the world? Yes. Yes, it does. Get started today and see why LinkedIn is the place to be to be. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.